Hey, what's happening, y'all? So we are back with the old camera orientation using the webcam again this episode because we are doing another audio experiment, this time checking out the best way to record acoustic guitar. Let's dive in. You silly mutt. So before we dive in, let's talk a little bit about what this experiment is even about, right? So if you remember a while back, I did a video on recording electric guitar. It was just like a method shootout where I did and simulated out from the amp. I used a DI with the amp sim. I used the load box with speaker IRs, and then I put actual microphones on the speaker and just checked them all out and saw what I thought sounded best. So I was thinking, why not do the same thing with electric guitar? And so I have this D'Angelico acoustic electric over here with the Fishman Precess in it. So that let me get a DI out. And then I purchased a Seymour Duncan Woody, which is basically a guitar pickup that you fit in the sound hole. And I also picked up one of these. It's from K&A. It's the AP2. It is a piezo transducer pickup with a volume control. So then we're getting DI, pickup, and piezo. So 3 different types of sound coming from that acoustic guitar. And then I was also thinking, well, what about different mic types? So, small diaphragm condenser, large diaphragm condenser, or dynamic mic. And what's the difference there? So I also got my AKG P170, my AKG P420, and a Shure SM57. Got those all kind of lined up and pointed at the same spot. Hit record and tracked one of my originals, Fallen, and just kind of saw what we got. So that's the experiment here, is just seeing what all these different recording methods sound like, which ones we think are the most usable, and how that goes. Okay, and now that we have the acoustic guitar recorded, it is time to play it back and see what we think. You'll notice I'm over here in Nuendo. So I started the trial of Nuendo. Gonna test that out and see how I like it. I did those experiments in Reaper and just kind of testing out different DAWs. My Pro Tools upgrade support plan actually expired last month. And for the first time in, I don't know, 10 years, I didn't renew it. So that's kind of weird. But I'm having fun testing out other DAWs, and we will see what I think about Nuendo. So we've got our 6 tracks over here. We've got the acoustic guitar DI, which is the Fishman system that's built into the acoustic. We've got the acoustic guitar pickup, which is the Seymour Duncan Woody that was put in the sound hole. We have the acoustic guitar piezo over here, which is the little triangle thing that I put just beside the bridge. The instructions say that a place by the bridge is going to work best, but to kind of move it around and test it in different locations. Be perfectly honest, I didn't move it around. I just kind of put it close to the bridge and picked a spot that was out of the way, that wasn't going to knock it off, and rock and rolled. We'll see how that turns out. It might benefit from some more experimentation there, but not really what I was concerned about in this particular case. Next, we have the acoustic guitar dynamic, which would be a Shure SM57 that I pointed all the mics kind of in this area, which is typically, if I'm miking up an acoustic guitar, that's kind of where I point the mic. It's a really good place to capture not direct sound from the sound hole, but fairly direct sound from the sound hole, and you're kind of nearby to get some finger noise and things like that, but not too much so it's distracting. That is just a fantastic place to point your mics if you're miking up an acoustic. We also have the acoustic guitar pencil condenser, which was an AKG P170, and then the acoustic guitar large diaphragm condenser, which was an AKG P420. All those were pointed at the same place. I think the pencil condenser might have slipped a little bit off axis before I started recording. Okay, so with all that out of the way, I will also say that I have not adjusted any faders, I have not added any compression, I have not added any EQ. All of these tracks are exactly as they were recorded, straight from the source. That's what I'm looking for. What do they sound like as they're recorded? Not necessarily how do they sound if I've done the work to make them sound their best. So that is another disclaimer here. Everything should be maybe not perfectly level matched. The 57 is a little bit quiet just because dynamic mic, and I really kind of had to crank the preamp to get it to be comparable with the others. So it's a little bit quieter than the rest, but you can see from the waveforms here, I matched the preamps as closely as I could to try and keep everything relatively even. So with that said, let's just have a listen through all these and then we can talk about it. Okay, so that was the acoustic guitar DI, the Fishman system built into the guitar. Now, of course, I'm noticing my acoustic guitar playing is a little sloppy and I need to work on it, but aside from that, an interesting starting place. Let's move on to the acoustic guitar pickup, the Seymour Duncan Woody. So next up is the acoustic guitar Piezo. Now, as far as the three pickup options are concerned, they all have very distinct qualities. I will say that at lower volume levels and in cans, they all sound even more different. Um, what what I think I would like to do an experiment with is I'll play through that again, and this time I'm going to try doing some quick A/B things, and also trying to combine some different pickups and see what we got. So let's see what happens there. Having listened to some of those things uninterrupted, let's kind of go back through and kind of talk about some of the stuff that we heard. So the acoustic guitar DI, the Fishman system, like it's almost serviceable, but it has kind of a tinny quality to it, and it's really missing that low mid warmth. So it might could be EQ'd to sound okay. It's not great on its own. Um, and it does still have like a weird kind of tinny twanginess that I don't know that I find particularly pleasant, but it's workable. So if we move on to the sound hole pickup, the Seymour Duncan Woody, that has a very different tonal characteristic. That is very much has a lot of that low mid warmth. And it honestly sounds pretty good, but it is missing some of that sparkle, some of that brilliance. So that's another thing where maybe with some EQ, yeah, with some EQ, that sounds fine. That's a future Matt here. There's a weird thing going on. I'm not entirely sure what the cause is, but whenever I review the footage from me doing this test, the acoustic guitar pickup tracks, the one with the Seymour Duncan Woody used as a sound hole pickup, whenever I'm playing back the tracks, there is very annoying and audible buzz, like electric buzz. However, when I'm playing back those tracks in Nuendo, I am not hearing that at all. I've tried listening with headphones, I've got the studio monitors up, I've tried a variety of different listening environments, and something with that one track means that playing straight out of the DAW, it's fine. But as soon as I record myself listening to it, whether this microphone is muted in OBS or not, buzz, really bad buzz. So that's just going to have to continue throughout this video. I do apologize. I'm not entirely sure what could be causing that, and it's really weird because everything else is like it's all going through the same environment. So why that one track has decided that it's going to be noisy is weird. And I will have to do some experiments and see if that is something that is consistent with the Seymour Duncan Woody, or if it's just a random glitch in Nuendo, or what's happening here. But anyway, appreciate your patience, and back to the show. Now we move on to the Piezo. Piezo has a very different tonal quality. Now to me, this almost sounds more like a microphone. The other two sound very close, like as if you were taking a DI, or if you had a microphone, close mic on a speaker cabinet, where it sounds like the mic is just right there. But with the Piezo, it sounds like it's a little bit further back. And it's interesting because it almost gives it kind of a lo-fi kind of quality to it, but it still has plenty of sparkle and brilliance. It has more low-mid warmth than the DI originally had, but way less than the sound hole pickup. Now I realize that we've gone through this with the speakers also being captured by the microphone, which is going to make that not quite so pleasant to listen to. So let's go back through, now that I've done EQing on those 3 tracks, and let me just kind of mute my mic, and we'll kind of toggle some EQ on and off on these 3 tracks. So, interesting stuff with those 3 pickups. I would also be curious to hear what we get when I start combining some of these with EQ applied. And so going back and kind of listening to all those different variations and testing those, it's especially interesting because I find that without my EQ curves applied, the combination of the DI and the piezo, I think, works pretty well. Um, it is missing some of that low end, some of that warmth, but that could be put in on a bus EQ, or like those EQ curves could be applied differently to kind of bring that back in. But it comes out very clear, and the piezo kind of adds some of the distance that the Fishman system is missing, making it seem more like it was mic'd up. And the DI adds some of the sparkle and the clarity that the piezo, with it sounding a little bit more distant, might be missing. But with the EQ curves applied, as I did them with each track soloed, the Seymour Duncan Woody, I think, paired well again with the piezo system. And this is interesting, especially for me, because when I went through these before filming this, I didn't particularly care for the piezo system, and there are some things there that I didn't really feel jived well. But going back through it again and being a little bit more critical and taking closer listens, that I think works surprisingly well. So that was a pleasant discovery for me. Now, I think they all have their place. They're all usable, especially once you actually get into sculpting the sound a little bit more. But I can see each of them having some different applications, so to speak. But that's that. Let's move on to the microphones. So we are going to start with our first microphone, which is our dynamic microphone, a Shure SM57. Man, you just can't hardly beat recording by pushing air. You know it. An acoustic instrument with a microphone in front of it. There is something about it, and yeah, the 57, of course, like everything else, would need EQ'd, but it already sounds great. So let's move on to our pencil condenser, the AKG P170. And one thing about the microphones as opposed to the pickups, I'm noticing that the pick sounds on the actual microphones sounds it it sounds more like pick sounds on strings and less like weird wicka wicka flibble sounds the way it sounds with the pickups. So it sounds more natural and more pleasing. So that's something that's definitely more forgiving with a microphone. If you've got slightly less impressive strumming technique, we shall say, um, the microphones can help turn that into a pleasing sound where you're actually hearing just pick sounds instead of these sharp, brittle, glitchy, wicka wicka kind of sounds that we got with the pickups. But moving on, let's check out our last microphone, which is the large diaphragm condenser, the AKG P420. Nice. I really like the sound of the large diaphragm condenser. I do think there's like some boxiness that probably needs to be brought out of it, but and maybe a little bit more high-end sparkle. But it's got enough high-end. It cuts. It's got some warmth to it. Let's see if we can get each of these sounding even better. They do all end up with very similar EQ curves, probably because they were all pointed at pretty much the same place on the acoustic guitar, so they're picking up mostly the same sounds with just some little alterations. Some of them were needed a little bit more help with that little boxy section than others. I don't think the pencil condenser did a bad job, but I think the other two just did it slightly better. So now here's another thing. Here's another thing I'm curious about, combining these two methods. So what if we were to have, and let's give ourselves some limitations. Say that we're working with a limited number of inputs. We can't record all 6 of these at a time. Say we had to pick one kind of direct method and one microphone. What would we get? So I'm going to mute my voiceover mic and just kind of toggle some different combinations here and see what we get. I am going to go back and turn off all of these EQs, and so that we are hearing just what these would sound like straight from the thing. Okay, more interesting stuff. So in my evaluation, I don't feel like the Piezo Pickup combined very well with any of the microphones. It's kind of more distant, kind of thin, hollowy kind of sound. I don't feel like jived well. It just kind of made it sound really weird. I didn't really like it. The other two, I think, did work okay. That's definitely usable. Um, it's one of the things where, like, if you've got a good microphone and you can mic up your acoustic guitar, like, I don't know why you wouldn't just go that route. But if you did feel like you needed to get some sort of DI signal, I think either the Fishman system or the Seymour Duncan Woody could do a decent job. I think you could probably move faders a little bit more because all the faders are still set to unity gain at this point. So, and I won't make us go through that because this has already gotten to be a pretty long experiment. But if we were to, bring the pickup option down a little bit and have the emphasis be on the 57 and then use that to, um, you know, add a little bit of definition and clarity. And so if you've got an acoustic electric guitar and a $99 Shure SM57, you can, with a little bit of EQ, you can get a pretty decent acoustic guitar tone. So it just goes to show that you don't have to break the bank in order to record some really good stuff. So that's basically the experiment I wanted to run. We did a lot. This was by no means like rigorously scientific or exhaustive, but I think we came across some interesting things here and tried some new things. I got to play around with different equipment and pairings of equipment to see what I thought worked, what I thought didn't. I did encounter some occasional hum and buzz issues with the Seymour Duncan Woody that wasn't entirely pleasant, but overall, I think it's got a pretty cool warm sound. The DI built into the guitar, wasn't entirely happy with this tone just as it is, but paired with a microphone and with some EQ on it, perfectly serviceable. Same thing with the piezo system. It needs some work to sound its best, but it doesn't sound bad, and it can definitely be usable. Thank you for coming along the journey with me. I hope some of this was useful. If you have any thoughts, maybe if you've done an experiment like this, or you have some other methods of recording acoustic guitar that you've tried, please jump on down into the comments and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. There will be links in the video description to the different things that I used, what my acoustic is, the sound hole pickup, the piezo, all that stuff. I'll put all of that. I'll have links to it down below for you to check out. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps. There will also be links to my website as well as to the merch store, places where you can go and get some cool swag and support the channel, which is all very much appreciated. But anyway, I think that should be about it for this video. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, but I appreciate you. Thank you so much. You're awesome, and have a good one.